Hi there, it's Gina from the Someday Society, and today I want to review how we made a junk journal at Journaling Lab the other day. As you can see here, I've got my pile of junk, and I intend to use this Minute Rice box for the cover of my junk journal, and it is exactly the size that I like, which is an A5 size or half letter sheet. And these are all of the papers that I intend to put inside of the junk journal. You can see there's all kind of stuff. I did pull out this other box, but I decided not to use it in the end. I think I'm going to use it to actually make a smaller junk journal. So stay tuned for that. I use different magazine sheets and junk from like my son's homework. And then some of these sheets, which were like almost material and see through, and then a couple older. Well, they look old, but it's just printer paper basically. And I fold them all to be half size. And I speed this up now because you sort of get the idea once I do a couple. And I like to do them all individually first so that you can fold them into each other. And you can go along the side with the bone folder so that you can get a nice crisp edge. And these sheets are the paper sheets that were like material were a little bit longer than the others, so they do stick out at the end, which is fine. I like it to be a little mismatched and for things to poke out and just add to the layers and the interest. I use this bat sheet from my son's homework because I thought it was fun to look at. And I like all things gothy. And of course, this envelope I'll end up putting in on the outside so that I can make some pockets out of it. This is another junk mail envelope. And this is one of those sheets that you put through a piano that plays by itself and it plays the song. So I thought that was neat. I'm not exactly sure where I picked it up at, but I thought it would be fun to put in the junk journal. And then I start to look at exactly what size I want, which is the half letter. And I use the half letter on the outside of the box just to see how it measures up. And I will need the lid panels from the box just to like a centimeter more to make the A5 size. I start to pull the box apart just to get it flat. And I will in a couple minutes cut down one of the shorter panels of the side. And I'm really doing a number on this box. So, I mean, maybe use a pair of scissors to help yourself out because obviously I'm having a struggle getting the box apart. And then I cut down the side here to open it up to make the outside of the journal. And I realized that I cut on the opposite side of where it is attached from the manufacturer, which is fine. I fix it up later with some washi tape, which you'll see. I use the bone folder to flatten out the side so that I can line it up and then just really crudely mark out exactly where I want to cut along the edges. And I don't mind the crude cutting because I like it to look a little wonky and worn. If you prefer to have a more straight edge, you can feel free to do this on like a cutting board or measure it out exactly. But I think measuring it out sort of puts a little bit more stress on you. I use this washi tape because it's thicker and I could just go along the spine here to reinforce it so that when I put the stitch through, it doesn't come out or the pages don't come apart from where it was glued by the manufacturer when the box was being made. I fold it over the top just to give it a little extra reinforcement. And you can even put a strip of washi down the outside too. And that could be something that you do at this step, or you can do it when you're finalizing it. And I think, using your boxes, like if you have things that you collect or for dinner or whatever, it sort of also reminds you of what is going on in your life. Now I line up the papers to make sure that the fold is in the center, in the spine, so that when we start to sew them down, they'll all be lined up exactly. And at this point, you're just sort of ordering them, and you can do it in any order that you like. If you like all the writing pages to be at the front, you can do that. If you like to intersperse them in a certain pattern, you can do that. It's really, this is unique to you. It's going to be a junk journal that's made just for you. And I'm just flipping through to make sure that I like the layout of the pages to see if I want to flip or switch anything around before I sew the signature. And the signature is just the the compilation of pages that you're putting in. And you can have more than one signature in your junk journal, but for this case, I'm only putting one in because this is like a little quickie. And unfortunately, my battery died, so I didn't get to show you how I cut this off just to make sure that it all fit inside. Now, I bought this tool off of Amazon and I will link it in the description box. It came with an awl, and you can take out this measuring device and it slopes down so you can put the spine of your junk journal right in there so that when you're adding your holes, you can use the numbers on the top of the triangle that we took out to measure how far apart you want them. So I like to do 3 holes in my junk journal just to make it sort of simple, but you can put as many as you like in. I eyeball it. I am not precise about this at all because, like I said, I like my stuff to look a little wonky. And you just use this awl that comes with the device to poke the holes through. And I like to just, make them extra big by pushing it all the way through the center and twisting it around to make sure that I can get the thread and needle through. And you can see where the 3 of them are. They're not necessarily measured out or perfect. And I don't want them to be perfect because that's part of the charm of a journal made of junk. And I like this awl, but typically or in reality, you could just use a needle and thread that you have at home. You don't need any kind of special equipment to do this, but this does make it a little bit easier. And I use this little extra piece of decorative paper to just put in the center, just add a little bit of, fancy visual interest to the inside. And I get my thread, which I'm using waxed thread. And you can get this, from your hobby stores or Amazon or wherever, but you really don't need to use explicitly waxed thread. You could actually use dental floss or any kind of thread. If you run it through, like, say, a candle or a bar of soap, you can wax the thread. And then they have these needles that are for bookbinding that are a little bit longer and thicker than regular needles. So they are a little bit easier to put through. But like I said, you don't need any kind of fancy equipment. This is all stuff that you can use, things that are just laying around your house. The first stitch I like to do is through the center from the inside to the outside, and then from the outside to the inside in the top hole. And I'll go back through the center to reinforce it through the middle. And make sure when you're going through, you're pulling down your thread tight so that it holds your signature together or your collection of papers. And then I didn't film where I come back through the bottom and back up to the middle. And then you just nicely and tightly tie it all down. If you even wanted to reinforce the stitch that you put in the center, you could lay down some washi tape, but you have to be mindful if you have any pieces of paper that are not the same size as the other pieces of paper in the center, because you would just have to cut the washi tape out around it and then snip off your excess. And to reinforce it on the spine, you could also lay some washi tape down. On the outside, I use the envelope, which I'm going to make into pockets. I'll use the bone folder here just to make sure everything lays down flat. I cut out the front pocket. This is just like a slip in, slip out. You can put extra paper or a notebook or whatever you want in there, junk to make your pages stand out. Then I just sort of look through it here to see if I like the arrangement, which I do. The arrangement typically doesn't matter to me. I just like it to be loosey-goosey and fun. And I use the magazine pages. You can see there's an extra pocket here at the end. I'll flatten this out to make sure that the spine is nice and flat. And there it is. There's my Minute Rice journal, and I'll pep it up a little bit with some coverage, which I can show you in another video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe. See you later. See you at the journaling lab, I hope.